Welcome to your weekly airplane news update. This is the week of July 18th, 2022, and this week we have 4 stories. The first one is kind of the don't be that guy news of the year, actually. I'm going to give it an award. A student pilot was charged with DWI and a whole lot of other things. We'll talk about London that's getting a heat wave that melt the runway, which is crazy. We'll talk about Vegas. There was a midair collision, unfortunately, with 4 fatalities. And then lastly, we'll talk about single pilot operation for the military, which, well, we'll talk about it. Let's get to it. The first story this week, I'm going to call it the don't be that guy story of the year, probably even of the last decade. This person, there was a crash in Kansas City this week, and the pilot was charged with DWI. The pilot, his name was John Seesing. He was flying a Piper Cherokee when he ran out of fuel and landed on I-70. Now you're going to say from here, what's the big deal, right? Well, the big deal was he was booked into jail on charges including, and let's get started, driving while intoxicated, which is flying while intoxicated in this case, careless and imprudent driving involving a crash, felony drug and drug possession, possession of marijuana, and drug paraphernalia. So this person hit the jackpot right here after doing this. And not only that, on top of it, they were not an actual pilot. They were student pilots, so didn't have a license to be flying on their own out there. So I don't think any of this actually includes the FAA charges, as they might come after this, careless and reckless operation, all these things, flying under the influence, which means that this person will likely never get a pilot certificate, which I'm sure is a good thing. So that's it. It's just a crazy story that somebody can do this and then pile them up. The next story this week, London is having a heat wave, and if you've been following any of the news, Europe in general is having quite a bit of a heat wave. This is Luton Airport, which is not the main airport, it's a smaller airport outside of London, was temporarily closed because of the heat wave. The heat was actually 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which caused the surface to defect and to melt in portions of the runway. And the repairs were made to the runway, and the airport was reopened a bunch of hours later. And then in other news, Phoenix today is going to hit 115 degrees and everybody survived. So I just thought that was interesting. The next story this week is a very sad one. There was a midair collision in North Las Vegas Airport this week. Both aircraft, a PA-46 and a Cessna 172, were preparing to land at the airport when they collided in midair. There were no survivors. Unfortunately, 4 people died into this crash. There's not much more to say about this. You can click and see some of the photos of the final remains of the aircraft. But very, very sad news. If you're flying, please, please, please keep looking around. It doesn't matter if you're in controlled airspace, uncontrolled airspace. Keep your eyes out, keep looking at people and see who else is out there. I know ADS-B is out, a lot of people rely on that, but it's not a foolproof solution, unfortunately. The last story this week is a really interesting one. This caught my eye when I was reading the news, and the US Air Force is exploring the potential of allowing a single pilot to fly a KC-46 tanker. Now, KC-46 tanker is a large aircraft, a very large aircraft, I would call it. They said that this would reduce the crew to just the boom operator and the pilot. This release has triggered a lot of intense discussion about safety and pilot workload, and quite frankly, I just don't understand it. And the bigger problem that I see with this is setting a precedent for other people to say, hey, it's okay to do single pilot operation, especially on large aircraft, when I truly believe that it's not. And I'm sure a lot of people that are flying those larger aircraft will have a lot to say about this as well, especially in military operation like this, where you may have a lot more stress going on because of where you're operating. So I think this is something that needs to be followed because, like I said, it would set a major precedent on something that we may not want to see just yet. Now, I know the trend is for aircraft manufacturers to design aircraft to be flown by only one crew eventually, and we've seen this. We used to have 3, and then now we're down to 2. Eventually we'll have only 1 pilot, and I know eventually we'll have no pilots. This will be interesting. We'll keep you posted if anything else comes out of it, but I think this is a trend that we're going to be seeing in the future, and I hope this doesn't happen just because of the need for pilots, but I hope it happens because we've made the cockpit a place where it's easier to fly, where you only actually need 1 person and not out of the need of only having 1 person. So I hope this makes sense. Let me know what you think in the comments about this, and if this is a trend that we're going to see in the future somewhere else. That's it. That's all I have have for you this week. We'll see you guys next week. Please leave your comments, and we'll talk to you then.